Hi, I'm Brooke. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about out-of-body experiences. I'm going to tell you about my experience with being out of body. So if you like that, stick around. As I've said in other videos, I think it's awesome to share these things personally. When I love hearing other people's stories, and it's definitely helped me to know what's possible. A lot of times I have questions that I don't have the answers to, and I'll hear someone's experience and it will help me answer a question or just open me up to a new experience. So if you are interested in having an out-of-body experience, I'm going to tell you my story, my experiences with it. Maybe it will spark something in you. If you've had an out-of-body experience, I would love to hear your story. Please leave it in the comments because I think this is amazing. This has been maybe my favorite. I've had a few of these wild, wonderful experiences of the mystical other side, whatever, however you want to refer to it. And this has been one of my favorites. And if you haven't watched my other videos, I'll post a link. I had a Kundalini awakening, or what people call that. I don't know if I care what things are called, but I guess it helps. I guess it helps. I don't know. I had an amazing experience with that. I'll put a link in the description. And and I said in that video, I didn't start out as a spiritual person. I started out very just agnostic, not really knowing much about any of these things or believing in any of these things. And I have to say here too, like, if these things hadn't happened to me, I definitely wouldn't believe it. So if you're someone that's skeptical, I hear you. And so I'm just telling you, like, things just started to happen to me over, I don't know, the last like 5, 10 years, like little by little by little, started to have these experiences. And I mean, now I'm like, let's go, I'm all in. But if you're someone who maybe you're just starting to be curious and like, welcome. If you're someone that's had like a million experiences, welcome. I also want to tell these stories too, because if there's people like me, like I feel like I know a lot of people that from the time they're a kid, they are like seeing things and hearing things and they're psychic and they're whatever. And that's awesome. But if you're someone like me who had no introduction to any of those things or didn't believe any of those things. And then as an adult, things are starting to happen, and you're like, well, what is going on here? Then come on in, gather around. Let me tell you about someone who wasn't into these things and started to have all these unusual experiences. And I also find that like as you hopefully you'll subscribe and listen to more of my stories, but the things that have happened to me, I've had a lot of these wonderful experiences, and it happens where I have no idea, like something will happen and it's just magical and amazing. And I'm like, well, what was that? I have no idea what just happened. And then answers will come and I'll figure it out. But a lot of people I feel like are the opposite. Like they go looking for things and then it happens. So that I'm like, I do things in reverse. So that's a little summary. And just to give you an idea of who I am, I'm an artist. I'm a fine art photographer. I'm sitting in my gallery in Manhattan Beach, California. These are some of my pieces of art behind me. Art is also something that it really helped me. Like when I take pictures, I'm very focused and in the present moment. And I feel like a lot opens up. Obviously, we've all heard the thing about being in the present, being in the now. So for me, my images really come through in that present moment state. It's really changed my life and made my life more peaceful. And so if you like peaceful art and being in the present moment, having that reminder, please check out my website, and I'll also post a link to my Instagram. I'll post them both in the description. Check it out. Okay, so out of body. So what I'll do is, because I've had a few experiences, I had one like full out of body. And again, I did not know what it was at the time. But now I have since realized. Um, and I had two experiences that like were precursors. Now I understand that those were precursors. So I'll tell you about those after, again, because like maybe something happened to you and I'll say something where you're like, oh, that's what happened to me, right? I find that that happens to me a lot. So I'm just going to share as much as I can and maybe it will help somebody. So I'll share the main event, then I'll share the things that led up to it. And then I've had a couple experiences after the like sort of partial experiences. Um, and I also just want to say, like, if you're interested in this topic, you probably have heard of Darius J. Wright. That is how, like, the out of body, it happened to me. I didn't know what happened, but it was amazing. And then I went looking for answers, and pretty recently, came across, like, one day it just came across my YouTube, and I heard him talking and I heard the testimonials and I was like, oh my God, that's what happened to me. I had no idea what it was. And so I joined, he has like a community and does like workshops and has like a method of how you can do it on purpose. So I have since joined, I've listened to like, there's so many stories of people who have done his method or who have been doing it like their whole life and didn't even like realize what they're doing. Similar, like where I had the experience where I didn't realize but it was so profound. So it really led me on a journey. Um, and so I highly recommend, like, if you're into it, like, I'm by no means some instructor or something. He's like expert level. I'm just bumping around in the night over here. But anyway, so my understanding, a lot of it has come now from listening to his work. So, okay, so the experience that I had that was actually out of body. Okay. So this is maybe a year or so ago, maybe a little more. And I had had a lot of mystical, I already sort of, again, if you watch the Kundalini video, I had already had that. I was already really open to a lot of things. But I still didn't know about out of body. And I want to clarify too, so some people talk about like astral projection, and my understanding is that that's different than the experience that I had. I had an experience where I was like really like in a body. So Darius calls it like a soul body. You're definitely you're having like a very physical, tactile experience. So there's a difference. I think it seems to be a big difference. But anyway, and I'm sure astral stuff is awesome too. I don't know. I just haven't done it. But so what happened to me? So I went to sleep one night. Actually, that night, I went to a bridal shower. It was an evening bridal shower, and there was a crystal healer. And I feel like this is part of what sparked it. But this woman, so she had like all these crystals, and I had never had an experience like this before, but she had all these crystals, and like she would put different ones in your hand, and eventually like one resonated, right? So I got this little, it's like a Amazonite, I believe. It was like a little blue, almost looked like a little blue Easter egg, really cute. And she's like, that's your one, right? And she ends up giving it to you. But, you hold it and she tells you some things. And honestly, everything she said resonated. I had a fun experience with her. And she let me keep the crystal. There's like a stone. I don't know. Um, and she said, put this under your pillow when you go to sleep, and it will help you. Right? So I thought, okay. I went home, I put it under my pillow, went to sleep. Okay. Okay, in my bedroom, there is a window up very high. I have very high ceilings, like 25 feet or something like that. So there's a window in my bedroom that's up by the ceiling. So I never covered it with blinds or anything. It's too far up, right? And it lets in sunlight and it lets in moonlight. And so it's really lovely. But when I sleep with an eye mask, 'cause it lets in too much light. So went to sleep with the eye mask, went to sleep with the Amazonite under my pillow. And I went to sleep like vertical on the bed under the covers, eye mask, right? Like I normally do, like people do. And at some point, so fell asleep. At some point, I am awake, but I'm not. So, okay. I feel like I have to preface a lot of things. A vivid dreamer, always have been. I know my dreamscape, right? What it's like. So this was not a dream. Like this was nothing like a dream. The room was exactly as it was. Everything is exactly as it appears in my normal waking life. But I was definitely not in a normal awake state either, right? I was very much awake and aware, but it didn't feel like regular life, right? And it definitely was not a dream. So at this point, I'm on the bed. I am horizontal over the covers. I am very much aware of being a body in a body. I can feel the weight of my body on the bed. I can feel the duvet cover like on my skin. I am having a very tactile experience. And I'm aware that I'm looking around my room. Everything looks like it looks, and there's light surrounding me. And at first, my first thought was that it was moonlight coming from that high window. But then I realized the light is blue, like a light blue, kind of like that stone that I put under my bed. Anyways, the light is light blue. And as I'm basking in this light, it's just everything. It feels like I didn't see anyone else there with me, but it felt like I was being held, like the light was more than just light, right? That it had some kind of presence to it, something. It was something that it was like holding me, and I was surrounded by it, and I felt so loved everything. Like I had gone to bed with like tension in my jaw and like little like neck pain and stuff. Everything, my whole body, every muscle in my body was relaxed. I just had this overwhelming sense of everything is totally fine. Everything's fine. That's it was like just this bliss, relaxed, and I felt so cared for and loved. And it was so, you guys, it was amazing. And it definitely felt like some kind of presence was like holding me. But like I said, I only saw the light. I was only aware of being surrounded by this light. Then I could see, so you know, when there's dust particles, you see them in the light and they're kind of like floating around. Well, so I could see dust particles in that light, except at first it looked like they were frozen. And my first thought was like, is time stopped, right? But then I looked a little closer and I could see they were kind of a little bit vibrating, just a tiny bit. And so I was just like, huh, is it time to slow? Like, what's going on? Later, I had a realization. I think it's not that time was slow. This is what it feels like to me. It's that I was vibrating faster, right? So, you know, if you're driving on the freeway and someone else is, you know, you're both going 100 miles an hour, just kind of seems like everybody's going slow or no big deal. But if you were standing on the sidewalk and someone went by you, right, it would feel faster. So I felt like maybe I was sort of vibrating or moving faster. And so the dust particles looked slow. That's my that's my takeaway. But anyway, so I'm looking at them, I'm seeing that they're vibrating just a little bit. I'm trying to sort out like what's going on with time. And then I stood up and again, I have no idea. I'm just moving with this, right? So I stand up and I look at the bed and I see my body on the bed, in the bed. So I had been like over the covers. I didn't have a memory of actually getting out of the body, but I was already out when I came to, so to speak. But I didn't realize it, right? And so at some point I stand up and I see my body on the bed and I could see the body is where I left it, so to speak. vertical under the covers and eye mask. And I was like fascinated. I was just like, oh my gosh, am I wearing an eye mask? But I was just looking out of my eyes. I'm looking out of my eyes. Like I couldn't quite, it's like I was lying on the bed looking out of my eyes. It really just felt like I was physical, lying on the bed looking out of my eyes. And then all of a sudden I stand up and I see my body in the bed, eye mask on. And I was like, huh. And then as soon as I started to question, like, was I just looking, I was just looking out of my eyes, but if I have my eye mask on, that doesn't make any sense. And then I was like back in the body, back in the waking 3D state. And first of all, that bliss, like everything is fine feeling stayed with me for like 24 hours. That was amazing. And similar, if you watch the Kundalini video, that I had like 3 days of bliss, but this was a little bit of a different feeling, just a feeling of like a knowing, like everything's taken care of. There was like this, everything's taken care of. That was like the big takeaway. Um, of course, since then I've gone back to stressing out about stuff, but for a good 24 hours, I was just like, everything's taken care of, everything's fine. I always am like remember everything's taken care of. So that happened, and then immediately I was like, what was that? That was not a dream. 100%. I've had a million dreams, not like that, right? That was not, it was so real. It was so tactile. It was so like when I saw myself in the eye mask, I was like, I was just looking out of my eyes. How could I be wearing an eye mask? And so I will say this, like the other takeaway, um, so a couple nights later, I mean, I had no idea. It took me a long time to find Darius, but so for a long time, I just really didn't know what happened. But I did understand something, which a couple nights later, I had a dream where it was definitely a dream but it was like a very lucid dream where I walked up to the mirror in my bedroom and I could see my reflection, and my reflection was wearing glasses. And at some point, she kind of turns her head and I can see there's no lenses in the glasses. And as soon as I realized there was no lenses, she started laughing. And I woke up and I realized like the eye mask thing, the glasses with no lenses, and I was like, oh, I see, or I see. I'm I'm realizing, or I'm trying to show myself you're not really seeing with your eyes, right? That's not really what it is, right? You're seeing with like something beyond the eyes, right? We have these physical vessels and mechanisms, but there's so much more behind what you're seeing, feeling. There's beliefs, there's the whole experience beyond, right? So that I thought was interesting. Um, and so that was the time I came all out, came out of the body. And it was really, really wonderful. And like I said, it sparked a journey, found uh, Darius. And that's been really interesting because that was like, it was great to realize, okay, that was something. And you know, it's an experience that people have. And according to him, like this is something we're just naturally doing and we don't remember. So now I'm going to tell you about two experiences I had in the years before that happened to me, which I think for a long time now, I think there's been, like I said, I've had a lot of these experiences. I'm going to try to share as many as I can where they're just like these amazing things that I don't really know what's happening, just kind of starts happening, right? And then I'm go looking for answers. So I guess that's how me and my soul communicate, right? Just like try to like shove me into stuff. Yeah, I'm doing my best to keep up. But anyway, so a few years before that, the first thing that happened, and again, I'm telling these stories is, maybe you've had something that you don't know what it is. Um, so according to this guy, Darius J. Wright, he talks about getting into, so you go into sleep paralysis, and from that state, you can move out of the body, right? The body naturally apparently goes into sleep paralysis when you go into deep sleep. And at that point, if you can keep yourself conscious, you can deliberately roll out, your soul body rolls out, right? Then you can have all these experiences. So I had never had sleep paralysis, apparently something people have. I never heard of it, I never had it, but quite a few years before the out of body, I started reading the Seth books. If you haven't read those, I recommend. It's like it's channeled material. This woman, Jane Roberts, she channeled this entity called Seth that from like in like the 1960s, 1970s. Um, and I still think to this day it's really good info. But anyways, I found this book. Someone told me about it. This is sort of when I was just kind of getting a toe into all of this, never heard of channeling. And as I started to read the book, all kinds of unusual things started to happen. I'll tell some of those stories in another video because I feel like this is long. But one of the things that happened um, was a sleep paralysis and like a being, right? So I was reading the books. I went to an Airbnb and it's like middle of nowhere, right? It was so beautiful. It was like this cool sort of like one bedroom house built into a mountain. Like the nearest house was really far away, really isolated. So it was really lovely. But I say isolated because the next part felt scary to me at the time. But so I'm by myself in the middle of nowhere and I go to sleep in this place. And it's like the layout was like living room, kitchen, and then there was a separate bedroom with a door and a wall. And then the living room was all sliding glass doors and like a big balcony and like this great view, right? So I go to sleep in the bedroom and I'm like on my side, okay? And all of a sudden I'm like, again, in this sort of awake, but it's not a dream, but I'm not like totally in the normal waking state. But everything, this was the first time where I had this experience where everything is exactly like the room is exactly like it is, right? And like it is in waking state and it's not fuzzy, my dreams is like kind of fuzzy. I'm here, I'm there. It's like my room, but it's not my room, right? This was like exact. I'm in the exact location, right? But in this experience, like I can't move and I can hear someone opening the sliding glass door, in the living room. I can hear the sliding glass door open and I hear someone walking and they come around. So I'm over here in the doors that way and I can't move my body and everything is so real, right? And I can hear something coming and I'm thinking someone's coming to kill me, right? Like that's, and I can't move my body and I'm terrified. And this entity comes in and I can feel it like sort of reaching out for me and it says my name. It's like, Brooke. Like I finally like jarred myself. Oh, like you can, kind of force yourself up. So I got myself to wake up and then, of course, nothing is there. The room's dark. Like in the experience too, like I could see everything. Everything was light, even though it was night. Um, and so that was terrifying. Now, of course, I understand. So again, according to this, that guy Darius and all these testimonials and things that I've heard, A, sleep paralysis is part of the experience. B, or it can be, some people like what happened to me where by the time I became conscious, I was out of the paralysis, but being in the paralysis and deliberately moving yourself out is like one way out. Um, but so if you experience sleep paralysis, good news, you can come out of your body. I did not know that. I'm assuming now that was like a being there to, especially since it was like calling to me, maybe it wanted me to like, if I would have sort of rolled over, I might have rolled my soul body out. I think so. I think that's what would happen now that I've heard all these stories. But at the time, I had no idea. Anyways, so if you get sleep paralysis and there's being visiting, apparently you can like roll out and hang out with that being. That's FYI. And again, you should go listen to that Darius, his YouTube, there's tons of testimonials, and people do talk about beings that are there when they come out. So that was my first time with what I now understand is out of body. And the second, and again, these are before I had like my full experience, so I have no idea what's going on when these things happen. So the second thing that happened just a couple of years, so that being visitation, that happened a few years go by. I found Dr. Joe Dispenza. I just started doing all of his wonderful meditations, which had all kinds of experiences, including the Kundalini experience. And so one of one of his meditations, like he has these meditations called Blessing of the Energy Centers, and you go through the energy centers or chakras and focus on each one. And they're really awesome. And that's what one of those is when I had the Kundalini come through. But so I worked my way up. There's quite a few of them. So I got up to number 4, right? And everything had been super awesome and pleasant up until then. And so I sat down to do the number 4. It was my first time doing it, and I'm feeling it. It's really powerful, and I'm feeling energy and all these things. And you go through the chakras and like connect them all, and then you go, there's like chakras up here. And it starts to really feel like I can feel something happening and get up here, and it starts to feel like I'm being pulled out of my body, like I'm sort of being like separated from my body. And I start to feel like I felt like I was dying, right? And start to hear a lot of loud sounds, like almost like cracking sound. Like so that was also really scary. I really legitimately thought if I continued the meditation, I would die. Um, Again, coming out of your body. Now I've heard the process. You can have different experiences with the stepping out process, but one way, once you go into the sleep paralysis, like you essentially feel, a lot of people describe it, feels like you're dying, right? And you kind of are. Again, that guy Darius, he talks about, it's kind of like he describes it as like a controlled near-death experience. Like you really are leaving the body, but the body's fine. It just goes into like a lower heart rate and stuff, but you come back just like when you go to sleep, right? So you can leave and come back. You're not dying for real. But I had no idea when this happened. I just thought I was gonna die. It was like painful and then it wasn't paralysis either, right? Because I was in the meditation, I was sitting up. But it definitely, I was being pulled out of my body. Now, I mean, there's no doubt. It was, and yeah, and so the sounds too, when you do come out of your body, you're changing frequency, right? So there can be an adjustment period. Again, if you listen to people that talk about coming out of their body, a lot of people describe that. Like your body feels like it's dying. There's like these cracking sound, crushing, train running through your house. Like there's all different ways that people describe it. But yeah, so that happened to me. It was like happening those 2 times, it was like this spontaneous thing. Well, the third time too, the time I actually came out, it was spontaneous as well. But yeah, this was happening and I was terrified and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. So as soon as when that started to happen, I got very scared and I turned off the meditation because if someone would have told me, I would have kept going. But I had no idea at that time that you could just like step out for a little while and come back, right? So I turned off that meditation and was like, oh my God, I don't know what happened. Like I'm not doing that again, right? Of course, since then, now I've tried it again, but it hasn't happened like that in that meditation again. So those were leading up. So if those kind of things, if you had some experiences, maybe that clears some stuff up. Um, Now, so those 2, then the full out of body, which was very pleasant. By the time I was conscious, I was out. Now, cut to found this Darius guy, listened to his info. He describes like different methods and ways that you can come out of your body. And I'll be honest, I haven't been like super disciplined in doing it. I think it does take a certain amount of discipline. But there is one method he talks about where um, you can come out in a dream, in a lucid dream. You can, if you become lucid in your dream, you can start to like focus your consciousness. And if you can get your full consciousness present, you can either just sort of pop out in your dream or you'll wake up back in your body in the paralysis state and then you can come out, right? So I did try that method twice and did have some success. So I'll tell you those stories now. If you're still around, here's some more stories. Okay, so this is a long video, but if you like this topic, then you're probably enjoying it. And if not, then I'm just talking to myself. So the first time I did that with the lucid thing, so I had listened to a bunch of testimonials and I heard people say things like they asked their guides for help or whatever, right? Because the whole like trying to fall asleep, keep yourself awake, but your body asleep, and then go into paralysis and then have that like dying sensation and then roll out, like tried it a couple times, doesn't really appeal to me. So I thought I'm going to try this dream thing and I'm going to ask for help. So I sat myself down one night and I just said out loud, hey, if there, I have any like beings out there that, you're benevolent and you have my best interest, hey, I could use some help. Like, can you help me? Can you like pull me out of my body? That'd be awesome, right? So I asked and then I went to sleep. And I'm dreaming, and at some point in the dream, I see a clock, a digital clock. It said 1:10. I don't know if that's relevant, but it said 1:10, and it was like very crystal clear. Like I said, my dreamscape is kind of fuzzy, but this was like really clear. So it caught my eye, and I was like, this doesn't belong here. What is this? Right. And so I start, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, dreaming, and I start like focusing on it. And then I was back in my body, right, in the bed, in the paralysis, except my body was like, if you were pushing someone, like trying to get them to wake up, like it felt like someone was pushing me, and I'm like, I'm not moving, my body's moving independently. I am not doing it. It's just like I instantly was like, this is it. This is the help. Something is like pushing me. This is amazing, right? So right away I knew what it was, right? And I was like, okay, I'm supposed to like roll out, right? So I try to start like rolling out, and all of a sudden I see, so a lot of times in my meditations, I see especially like when I was doing a lot of the Dr. Joe stuff, when I would have like a shift in vibration, or you move into a different brainwave, or however the right way to describe it, there would be like a sort of click where I'd sort of move into like that more relaxed state. And in those times, a lot, and sometimes it happens too when I'm going to bed. It like all of a sudden there'll be like these geometric patterns that I'll see. And it's always like, looks kind of like the night sky with stars, let's say, except they're always blue. It's like a light blue color. I have a lot of blue apparently come in to me, even different places. But it's like these, and they're clearly in a pattern. And there's always like a center, like a hole in the center. And I always felt like those, like that was supposed to be like something was supposed to happen. Like I was supposed to jump through that hole. Like I always had a feeling, but I never knew they would just come and flash and go away. Eventually, I got to the place where I could kind of like hold it, but nothing ever would happen. Okay. So I'm in this like coming out, my body's shaking. I'm thinking, here we go. I start to like roll out or try, and all of a sudden the pattern appears, except this time it starts moving. It came alive, you guys. It was amazing. The color, all of a sudden, I mean, it was always like a dull light, like a blue, but dull. And this just neon, electric blue and yellow and pink, and it's moving and swirling, and my whole room is filled with these patterns that are alive and the colors are amazing. Okay. And I just stopped like trying to get out. And I was like mesmerized. It was like, I mean, it was like, I've taken in the distant past, I took, acid and other things, and this was like better than anything I've ever seen. It was amazing. Okay. So I just became mesmerized and I just like sort of lay back and watch the show. And then all of a sudden everything stopped. And then I realized, shit, I was supposed to like, that was my cue, right? I think maybe it was like a portal. I don't know what, but obviously things were starting to happen and I stopped moving. And then I was back like in the 3D in my body. Um, and I was like, oh man, shit, right? But I was like, it's okay. Like just seeing that was like I could die happy, like just having seen that, that was amazing. Although I guess if I die, I'll be seeing more of that. Apparently, that's waiting for us on the other side. But anyway, so that was amazing. And I realized, okay, next time I gotta like push, I gotta get out of the body, right? So a week later, I did it again where I sat down, I asked, I said, hey, if there's anyone out there, um, could you help me, right? Or anyone who's, I always say, like, who's benevolent, who's on my side, wants to see the best for me. I like to make that statement. So again, I go to sleep. That one I went to sleep and then I got up in the middle of the night to pee, then went back to sleep. And that's when, so I went into a lucid dream. And so in my bedroom, there's these like glass French doors, and then a big balcony. And then I have curtains, right? So at night I close the curtains. Um, and oh, I wanted to say one other thing. Jumping around. Stay with me. That time too where I was seeing the lights. Um, Same thing where I realized when I was like, oh, back in my body, like regular 3D style, then of course all of a sudden I'm aware of the eye mask. And I was like, fuck, it really feels like you're just looking out of your eyes. Like I could feel the eyes and the eyelids. It's so physical, right? And I was like, once I was back to 3D, I was so surprised that, oh, my eyes are closed and there's an eye mask. That's so cool. It's like such an interesting sensation where it just feels like this, like you can feel the eyes and it's really wild. The physicality of it, it's really cool. Um, and since that first out of body, I have a lot of times right before I go to sleep, I guess it's like a little bit of a some that like between state. I will have experiences now where I can sort of see with my eyes closed. Like especially I'm often my eyes are closed, there's an eye mask on, and I'm kind of can look at my hands, and but like I can see every detail. And then sometimes I'll get flashes of places and things. And again, it's like I'm really eyes open looking, but a lot of times I don't know what I'm looking at. It'll be like a person, a place that I don't know. So I'm trying to get better at like holding that state, and I assume I'm seeing, I don't know, other lives or whatever it is, but I'm just learning about that all this stuff is, possible. Anyways, the final story that I will tell you is the second time when I asked someone could help me. So I go to sleep, or yeah, right, get up to pee, I come back. I'm back I go back to sleep. French doors, curtains are closed. I'm in the dream and it's like daylight. And I look over, I'm still in my bed. I look over, the curtains are open, right? And I immediately, I'm like, that's not right. Something's not right here. I wouldn't open these. I'm in bed, right? Who opened these curtains? It's funny because I was kind of mad in this experience like the whole time. And so right away, I'm like, who opened these? What's going on? And I can see out of the, the French door, it's glass. So I can see out into my balcony, and there's all these people, like friends of mine. They're out there kind of like having a party, but they're not looking at me. So I get up and I go look, and I start to see like their face. Everything is real, right? It looks so real. The details of their faces, I could see every detail. And I'm like, shit, that really looks like so and so, right? Because in my regular dreams, there's a person, but it doesn't really look like them, but I just kind of know it's them. I don't know how you dream, but that's how I dream, right? But in this experience, I can see like every detail. I'm like, that person's a real person. That's really them. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, wait, am I in my body? Right. But I'm still thinking it's definitely not like as real as that other time, right? So but I'm like, something's going on. So I look back at the bed, but there's no body in the bed, right? So I'm like, shit, I'm not out of my body, but something's going on. So I get back in the bed, and then all of a sudden there's another me next to me, and she's sitting on the bed. And it's funny because like first her hair is down, right? And I'm looking at her face, and she's just looking around. She's like, wait, I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure this out. And she's like really stressed out, looking around. And then all of a sudden, her hair is up in a bun, and she looks at me like straight on, just really calm. And I look at her, just like, I know what this is. Like, sort of like grabbed her face. I think I was trying to see if she was like solid. Like, I go and I grab her face, my face, the other me's face. And she was kind of like laughing, go to grab it. And then all of a sudden, I'm in my body in the paralysis, except I have one hand like shot out from grabbing my other self. And the room is shaking. I'm thinking it feels like an earthquake, sounds like an earthquake. It's like major shaking. And so right away I was like, this is it. I'm coming out of my body. This is like the frequency or whatever. And I remembered the other time when I moved too slow. And so I was like, oh, like I just like try to force myself out, like all my abdominals like engaged. I just tried so hard. And this time I tried too hard. Like I woke myself up, right? And then I was up, and I even Googled, was there an earthquake this morning? I live in Los Angeles, so could have been. No earthquake. It was definitely part of the out of body. And that is so far where I'm at with out of body. Like I said, I haven't been that disciplined, but I want to get more disciplined because I really want to have like the full experience. Apparently, there's so many things that you can experience in that state. So if you've made it this far, thank you. And I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm assuming if you've made it this far, you enjoyed it. Um, and I hope that I answered some questions. Like I said, I have had these experiences just super haphazardly. Not the last two things where I like deliberately did it. So that's kind of cool. But leading up to that, there was some things that happened to me that scared me. So hopefully maybe can alleviate some stress for other people. And when I did get out of my body, it was super wonderful. So I think you just have to get over that part. Or maybe you don't have to, right? There's different ways, but I guess if you want to really do it on purpose all the time, I think there's a certain amount of getting over the paralysis thing. Um, Still working on it. Yeah. Oh, and then I'll tell you next time or the next video after that full experience where I came out, when I went searching for answers, I came like I've basically since that meditation, things have started to shift for me with time. And looking for answers led me to a meditation which really seemed to, I don't want to say break time for me, but like some really interesting things are happening around time. And that's for the next video because I think I've been talking a really long time. I don't know. Hopefully this all made sense. I'm trying to think. I wrote a couple things down. I think think I covered everything. I don't know. But this was fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe. I would love to hear people's stories. I think it's such a fun thing. Um, and thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.